Chapter 6. The Ultimatum of General Krazthor. As Zahak's flagship traversed the dark expanses of space, the atmosphere aboard was one of tense expectation. The bridge, a hub of activity, buzzed with the focused energy of its crew. They navigated the vessel with a practiced ease, their eyes frequently darting to the panoramic view screens that dominated the front of the bridge. These screens displayed the mesmerizing beauty of a Rosen bridge, an astrophysical anomaly that embodied the theoretical principles of folded spacetime. This remarkable feature, a testament to Drakzarian technological prowess, enabled instantaneous travel across the unfathomable distances of the universe, a cornerstone of their empire's rapid expansion and dominance. At the heart of this controlled frenzy stood Zahak, a figure of awe and fear. His serpentine coils undulated subtly, a visual echo of his formidable power. Towering over the bridge crew, he exuded an air of command that left no room for doubt or dissent. His gaze was fixed on the main screen, which now revealed a new solar system, its planets glowing like jewels against the velvet backdrop of space. This system, now known to us as the Krazthor cluster, shall be our next conquest, Zahak announced, his voice deep and resonant. It carried through the bridge, every syllable imbued with the certainty of command and the promise of impending expansion. The crew members absorbed his declaration with a mix of reverence and eagerness. The Krazthor cluster, a name unfamiliar yet laden with potential, represented not just a new challenge, but also an opportunity for furthering the Drakzarian Empire's influence and reach. Zahak's eyes lingered on the display, his mind already mapping out the strategies and tactics that would soon unfold across these distant worlds. For him and his empire, the cosmos was an endless chessboard, each move calculated to assert his dominance and fulfill his insatiable ambition for conquest. He turned to General Krazthor, the Drakzarian commander responsible for the newly acquired human conscripts. Use the 10,000 to purge the inhabitants of the first planet. Make it ours. General Krazthor, a figure of ruthless efficiency, bowed before Zahak. "As you command, my lord," he replied. His voice a guttural growl in acknowledgement of Zahak's command, reverberated through the bridge, reflecting the unyielding hierarchy and the ruthless efficiency that characterized the Drakzarian military structure. The general, known for his tactical acumen and unflinching loyalty to Zahak, turned to execute the orders with a swift and decisive air. He moved to rally his forces. The weight of his task was clear. The 10,000 human conscripts, plucked from their lives on Earth, were to be the vanguard in a campaign of planetary conquest. For these individuals, ripped from their familiar world and thrust into an interstellar conflict, the reality of their situation was as terrifying as it was unfathomable. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship, Zahak continued to survey the Krazthor cluster with a calculating gaze. Each planet represented not just a territorial expansion, but also a resource to be exploited, a piece in the grand strategy of his empire. His ambition knew no bounds, and his willingness to use the human conscripts as mere tools in his conquest underscored his ruthless nature. The bridge crew operated with a mix of fear and admiration for their leader. They were well aware of the stakes involved in their imperialistic endeavors and the price of failure under Zahak's rule. As the flagship continued its journey through the cosmos, the sense of impending conflict grew greater, a dark harbinger of the battles that lay ahead in the conquest of the Krazthor cluster. Upon their arrival in the Krazthor cluster, General Krazthor addressed the human conscripts, now tools in the Drakzarian Empire's relentless expansion. The human conscripts were an integral part of the Drakzarian military machine, and as he looked over them from above, General Krazthor addressed them upon their arrival from processing, as they also arrived in the Krazthor cluster. Korra, along with the others, stood in formation, their faces a mix of fear and uncertainty as they faced the general. Krazthor's presence was commanding, his platform levitating above the gathered humans, ensuring his dominance was visually unchallenged. His voice, deep and authoritative, echoed throughout the chamber, leaving no room for doubt or hope among the conscripts. "We are Drakzarian. You are our servants. For 14,000 years, Your kind has been shaped to serve us, and serve us you shall unto death. Escape is a fantasy, and disobedience is death. You are now part of our irradiation force. We all serve Zahak, and Zahak decrees this system be cleansed of the unbelievers. As you depart, you will receive your final piece of equipment. You may find it uncomfortable. His laughter, a sinister sound that resonated with malice, signaled the end of his declaration. As portals along the walls of the vast chamber opened, the conscripts were herded through them. Cora, caught in the flow of the crowd, found herself pushed through a portal. As she passed through, devices struck the sides of her head. In an instant, a helmet with a red screen enclosed her face. Then the pain began, a searing, unbearable agony that felt as if her skull was being torn apart. It was as if fiery worms were burrowing into her scalp, each movement causing fresh waves of pain. The helmet, the final piece of equipment mentioned by Krazthor, was not just a tool of war, but an instrument of control and subjugation. It symbolized the complete loss of autonomy and identity, transforming Cora and her fellow conscripts into mere extensions of the Drixarian will. Cora, amid the pain and shock, realized the full extent of her transformation. She was no longer just a student with a love for history. She had become a cog in the machinery of an alien empire, her very being altered for purposes far beyond her understanding. This harsh reality, combined with the physical torment of the helmet, marked the final step in her forced evolution from human to Drixarian conscript as they descended upon the serene surface of the first planet. This world, untouched by the cosmic conflicts that ravaged others, exuded a peaceful, almost idyllic beauty. The native inhabitants, unaccustomed to aggression or war, approached the newcomers not with hostility or fear, but with open arms and gestures of welcome. Their innocence and naivety were overwhelming, a stark contrast to the brutal intentions of their uninvited visitors. The conscripts, now a part of an alien military force, marched in a hauntingly perfect formation towards the native beings of the Krynos cluster. Their movements, eerily synchronized, spoke of the control exerted over them by their Drixarian captors. Cora, feeling the weight of the rifle in her hands, wondered at its presence. It must have been given to her when the helmet was secured, a symbol of her new role in this alien conflict. The natives, with their fur-covered bodies and resemblance to mythological satyrs, stood in stark contrast to the armed conscripts. Dressed in what appeared to be futuristic versions of ancient Greek togas, they looked on with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Cora's mind spun with a whirlwind of questions and fears. "Where the hell am I?" she thought, struggling to comprehend the reality of her abduction, the existence of aliens, and now the unsettling understanding of a language she had never heard before. General Krazthor's voice cut through the air, snapping Cora back to the grim reality. His command to cleanse the planet echoed with a chilling finality. To Cora and the other conscripts, it was clear. They were to be the instruments of a genocide against these peaceful beings. A deep, internal struggle began to manifest among the human ranks. Faces once familiar with everyday life on Earth now reflected the horror and conflict of their current predicament. The conscripts, each grappling with the remnants of their humanity, hesitated. They were trapped in a moral quandary, torn between the ruthless demands of their alien captors and the innate sense of right and wrong that cried out within them. Krazthor informed them, "Your implants endow you with potent abilities and knowledge. Now, exterminate them in the name of Zahak." The order came unbidden into her mind. Exterminate them? Why? She wasn't alone in her hesitation. The ranks were filled with murmurs and failed attempts at peaceful greetings. Then, in unison, the conscripts turned towards General Krazthor's platform. General Krazthor, sensing the faltering resolve of his troops, acted quickly. Pressing a device on his wrist, he summoned a holographic interface that shimmered into existence in the air. The display showed the faces of the conscripts in a chilling array, reminiscent of a twisted game of chance. Each face represented a life hanging in the balance, a pawn in the general's demonstration of power. This ominous display served as a stark reminder of the conscripts' predicament. Bound by technology, stripped of their autonomy, and thrust into a conflict far beyond their understanding, they were now faced with an unimaginable choice: comply with the genocidal orders of their captors or face dire consequences themselves. Impending doom was quickly revealed to be a staple of the tragic testament to the cruelty and ambition of the Turd-Ysseys Empire. With a flick of his finger, Krazthor sent the holographic wheel spinning, the faces blurring into one another. The conscript watched as the display showed on the helmet screen in front of them, horror-stricken, as he tapped the screen, selecting a victim at random. A deafening trumpet blast echoed across the planet, and in a gruesome spectacle, one of their own exploded into a cloud of gore, their implants violently extracted and collected by the general's device. The horrifying sound of a trumpet filled the air, and the person next to Cora burst apart, showering her in a rain of blood and viscera. The cruel demonstration of power by General Krazthor sent shockwaves of terror through the ranks of the human conscripts. The holographic interface, displaying their faces in a sinister lottery, symbolized their complete lack of control over their fate. As Krazthor casually flicked his finger, spinning the holographic wheel, each conscript's face blurred into the next, a macabre dance of chance and death. The atmosphere was fraught with tension and dread as Krazthor tapped the screen, arbitrarily selecting another victim from the array of faces. The sound of the trumpet, a harbinger of death, reverberated across the planet. In a horrific display, the chosen conscript burst apart. The extraction and collection of the implants by the general's device was a stark reminder of their status as expendable tools in the hands of their Turd-Ysseys overlords. The message was clear. Disobedience would be met with swift and brutal punishment. This chilling demonstration forced the conscripts to confront the harsh reality of their situation. They were trapped in a nightmare, their humanity hanging by a thread, coerced into committing unspeakable acts under the threat of a similar fate. The horror of what they had witnessed, coupled with the realization of their own vulnerability, created a sense of despair and hopelessness. With heavy hearts and minds reeling from the gruesome spectacle, the conscripts faced the native beings once again. The innocence and peaceful nature of these creatures stood in stark contrast to the violence and cruelty they were being forced to inflict. In this moment, the conscripts had to make a harrowing choice: to carry out the genocidal orders of their captors, or to resist and face the consequences of defiance. The weight of this decision bore down on each of them, a moral quandary with no easy answers, only the grim certainty of the cost of their actions, whichever path they chose. "Shall I harvest another?" Krazthor's voice resonated in their minds, his threat clear. With heavy hearts and a sense of utter helplessness, the conscripts turned their weapons on the peaceful inhabitants, forced into action by the grim alternative. Cora, alongside her fellow conscripts, stood at the precipice of an irreversible act. General Krazthor's ominous question, "Shall I harvest another?" echoed not just in their ears but deep within their souls. The threat was unmistakable, and the choice before them was stark: comply or face the same gruesome fate. The air was filled with the smell, the stench of fear and despair. As they turned their weapons towards the innocent natives, each conscript was acutely aware of the monstrous act they were being forced to commit. The skies above darkened, not just with the smoke of destruction, but also with the shadow of a great moral eclipse. Cora's hand shook as she aimed her rifle. Never in her wildest dreams had she imagined being in such a predicament. Her finger hovered over the trigger, each heartbeat a drumbeat of internal conflict. The choice between her own life and the lives of these peaceful beings was a torment unlike any other. With a breath that felt like the last, she gave in to the demands of her captors. The formation opened fire, and the air was filled with the deafening sounds of weapons discharging. The cries of the fallen natives were a harrowing melody to the silent screams tearing through the minds of the conscripts. They had been transformed into unwilling instruments of genocide, their humanity eroded by the ruthless will of Zahak and the cold commands of General Krazthor. As Cora fired, each shot was a betrayal of her own values, a surrender to a reality she could neither accept nor escape. The massacre unfolded with mechanical precision, leaving the once serene world of the Krynnis cluster forever scarred. In the aftermath, Cora and the others were left to grapple with the haunting reality of their actions. Survival had come at a terrible cost, and they were now bound to an existence where life was a burden, and the notion of mercy seemed a cruel joke. In this distant and cruel galaxy, survival had become a curse, each breath a reminder of the lives they had taken, and each moment a testament to the loss of their own humanity. Cora, like the others, was trapped in a nightmare with no awakening, a pawn in a cosmic game of conquest and domination.